What is up, guys? So a couple days ago I posted my review for Avengers Infinity War, and that's a spoiler-free review, so if you want to click that, if you want to watch that, click in the top right corner of the video, because for this spoiler review I won't be going over anything I talked about in that video, except for a couple things that I do want to elaborate on in spoiler fashion. But as the title suggests, this is a spoiler review of Avengers Infinity War. It's not really a review, it's just me pointing out things I liked about the movie, seeing things I didn't like about the movie with spoilers, because my main review is the spoiler-free review, because that's just my review of the movie. This will be really me just talking about a couple moments from the movie that I really liked, or a couple moments that I didn't really like. Like, there aren't any moments I hated, none that I can remember, and I did see it 3 times. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely don't watch this video. Watch my spoiler-free review, watch the video, and then what I meant to say is watch my spoiler-free review, watch the movie, and then watch this video, because this video is full of spoilers. With that in mind, let's go over the spoiler review of Avengers Infinity War. So before I talk about the death scenes, which is something that, like, the biggest spoiler of the movie, I want to talk about other things that I really couldn't talk about in my spoiler-free review. So one of the things is Captain America's role in the movie was pretty minimal, and I didn't really like that, because Captain America is honestly my favorite Avenger out of all of them. It's probably because his movies are just awesome, and his trilogy is probably my favorite movie trilogy, or at least superhero, definitely movie trilogy of all time. So he was my favorite Avenger, and he still is, but in this movie he doesn't really get much to do, and I definitely think that the reason for that is because they had so many superheroes, they needed to focus more on other ones like Iron Man and Thor and SpiderMan and Doctor Strange. So I guess I get why they did that, but it still kind of bothers me how Captain America's role in the movie was so minimal. Another thing is the appearance of Red Skull, which I did not see coming in the slightest, and where the Soul Stone is. And I really like the fact how none of the theories were true, because really all the theories were so stupid. Maybe the Heimdall one wasn't really stupid because it kind of made sense. But that also didn't make sense, because they said they can't have 2 Infinity Stones at Asgard at once, and that was the whole reason the Collector had the Reality Stone, so it doesn't really make sense for Heimdall and the Tesseract to be there. So just thinking about it, the way they went about introducing the Soul Stone into the movie was great, and the Red Skull's appearance was so unexpected, especially because I knew the actor for Red Skull really didn't want to do these movies anymore, and it turns out he still doesn't, because the actor for the Red Skull here was somebody else. So, on my first watch, there was this one moment, this one scene that kind of bothered me, and that scene was Star-Lord punching Thanos for killing Gamora. Now, the reason I didn't really like this scene at first was because I thought it was really, really cliche, and it really sucked how Star-Lord was the sole purpose for Thanos not being defeated at that moment. It just really bothered me, and obviously it would have stopped the plot of the movie, but I think it was a little cliche, and I still think it's cliche, but the more I think about it, the more I get what Star-Lord did. I mean, Thanos did kill his girlfriend, and his reaction was very appropriate for both the character and what Thanos did to the character. So even though I still think it's a little cliche, and I don't really like how Star-Lord, he felt kind of unlikable at that moment, but either way, I still think it's fitting for the character and fitting for what Thanos did, so it doesn't really bother me as much anymore. So, throughout the whole marketing campaign for the movie, a lot of people have noticed that both Hawkeye and Ant-Man are not in the trailers. They thought maybe it's because they're keeping a secret. Maybe they think these guys aren't very marketable, so they don't want to put them in the trailer and focus on other characters. But the reason Hawkeye and Ant-Man were not in any of the trailers, posters, promotional photos, synopses, or anything like that is because they're not in the movie. And I definitely think that's not a great thing, because first of all, Hawkeye was one of the founding members of the Avengers, and Ant-Man has had his own movie, so I definitely think that is weird how they're not in the movie. But honestly, that's such a small nitpick of the movie, and they're probably both going to be very big parts of the next one. So moving on to my next point, which was Doctor Strange giving up Time Stone to Thanos. Now, this is something that I will defend. A lot of people have been saying, not a lot of people I've seen a couple people say that what Doctor Strange did here was pretty stupid, but I definitely think there's a reason to it. I definitely think that, first of all, you see earlier in the movie that he saw like 14,605 futures, and only one of them did they win, and then he gives Thanos the Time Stone, and then later in the movie, a couple minutes later, you hear right before Doctor Strange dies, which I will talk about later in the video, he says to to Tony that this was the only way. So I definitely think that him giving Thanos the Time Stone will definitely lead to the Avengers' victory at the end, and that's really the reason he gave up the Time Stone. So I actually really like this whole thing of Doctor Strange seeing the future, giving him the Time Stone, and then saying it was the only way. So moving on to the death scenes of the movie, and there were so many of them because I think, thinking about it right now, this movie, Avengers Infinity War, has more people die in it than any other movie in history. Because think about it, you see at the end of the movie, Thanos clicks his fingers or snaps his fingers and half of the universe dies, which means that at least like 3.7 billion people die on Earth. And then there's the rest of the universe, which probably has trillions and trillions of people. So no other movie in history has had this many deaths as far as I remember. Maybe there's a movie where the universe just everyone dies, but as far as I can think, this is the movie with the biggest death toll. And there were also a bunch of actual characters who died. And when I say a bunch, I mean a lot. First, there was, before the snap of the finger, there was Loki and Heimdall, and then Gamora. And those death scenes, all three of them were pretty sad. Loki, the one that was the saddest was definitely Gamora, because Loki's death scene felt pretty fitting for the character to die at that point, and he went out as a hero instead of a villain, where he was trying to kill Thanos. So I definitely liked his death scene. It wasn't crazy sad, neither was Heimdall's, but both of them were extremely fitting for the characters, and I felt like it was time for them to die. Now, a character that I definitely think it was not time for to die was, first of all, a bunch of characters who died later, but also Gamora. Gamora, for some reason, she hasn't been around for long enough to just die, but she did die in this movie, and this is one of the only deaths in the movie, along with Loki and Heimdall, that I think is permanent, because it wasn't due to the snap of the finger, it was actually just due to falling. And this death scene was pretty sad because even though Thanos was the one to kill her and nobody else reacted to it, no character we've ever seen before reacted to the death scene other than Thanos, and also Peter Quill later in the movie, but at the actual death scene, nobody reacted to it except for Thanos, and that should make it less sad because he is the main villain, but he's also the main character of this movie, and to see the loved one of one of the main characters die is always a sad thing, especially when the main character reacts to it, like Thanos did in this movie. Even though he's the one to kill her, it was a pretty sad death scene. Now, obviously, there are more death scenes at the end of the movie where Thanos snaps his finger, and so many superheroes and characters and just people die. So the characters that died, and I may miss a couple here, I don't really remember everything. Like, I do remember everything. I've seen the movie 3 times, but I'm probably not going to list every character. But there was the White Wolf who used to be the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. There was Groot. There was a bunch of Wakanda soldiers. There was Falcon. There was Star-Lord. There was Drax. There was Mantis. There was Doctor Strange and Black Panther. And I think... Oh, and also Scarlet Witch. I think that's all of the superheroes that died, except for Spider-Man. Now, the reason I left Spider-Man for last is because I think everyone can agree that out of all the death scenes in this movie, the one that was the saddest was 100% Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Even though I know for a fact that these death scenes, the ones that where the people turn to dust, those death scenes are 100% either not actually death scenes, and there's a theory that they're not dying, their souls are just being stuck in the Soul Stone, and that's definitely a good theory in my opinion, because I definitely don't think these characters are died, because they killed off characters that have future franchises like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther. There's no way these characters are actually dead. So even though I know Spider-Man's death scene is temporary, it still hits so hard because of Tom Holland's acting in the scene. He plays this guy, just a kid or a teenager who doesn't want to die, and the reason I think that he can sense it coming, because no other character was able to sense it coming, like a whole half a minute before they actually died. They just died, or they reacted to it but just died a second later. The reason I think Spider-Man was able to do that was because he has a spider sense, so he's able to sense that coming, and that's why he didn't feel really well, because I mean his spider sense senses death, so he probably would make him feel pretty weird. But this death scene was just so amazing, and the reason it was definitely what I said earlier, which is Tom Holland in the scene. I think his acting in this movie, especially in the scene, is incredible. He probably has one of the best performances in the movie, along with like Chris Hemsworth and Josh Brolin. These actors are amazing in this movie, and this death scene is incredible. I went to the movie 3 times, like I keep on saying, and every single time I went, I cried a little bit, my eyes water, and that's a testament to an amazing and really sad death scene, especially when you know it's temporary. I knew for a fact this is temporary, but the shock of the moment every single time I went was incredible. It was so sad and emotional. This death scene is probably the saddest death scene I have ever seen in any movie. Now, a lot of people will probably say that I probably haven't seen a lot of movies, and I have seen a lot of movies, but most of them are superhero movies. Most of them are like not like in this sort of genre, like sci-fi and action and comedy. And I really haven't seen a lot of like dramas. So maybe there are other movies with crazy death scenes, crazy sad death scenes. But as for me, Spider-Man's death scene in Avengers Infinity War is probably the saddest death scene I've ever seen. And that's crazy because I know for a fact it's temporary. Now, the rest of the people who turned to dust, none of their deaths were crazy emotional. I think Rocket Raccoon reacting to Groot dying was pretty sad, and also Captain America reacting to everybody dying when he says, "Oh God," that was crazy. That just saying that word, those 2 words from him, really showed how desperate the Avengers are, especially when Captain America, who never really shows his like weakness, he's saying, "Oh God," like he doesn't know what to do. That's pretty crazy to me. But even though none of them were really that sad, except for Spider-Man and Groot, and really mostly Spider-Man, it was just mainly Spider-Man, even though they're mostly not that sad, collectively, especially with Spider-Man right at the top, it's so depressing when you think about it, because all these characters are dead. There's no hope for the Avengers. There's no hope for the universe, for the world at this point. So the more I think about it, the more times I watch it, the more sad I get watching it, and that's actually pretty crazy. It's not really crazy. It's just it's such a great ending to the movie. And then the movie ended with such an unexpected note, which was the villain actually winning. And that's not something you see very often in movies. In fact, I don't remember a movie where a villain wins at the end of the movie, and there's also another movie after that, because the next movie will probably be a lot less sad than this one in terms of the ending, but the ending for this movie was incredible. Now, I said in my spoiler-free review that the ending was a little unsatisfying, and I still think that's a tiny bit unsatisfying if the next movie isn't to be made, which it is. But watching it 2 more times made me realize that this is such an incredible ending. First of all, you see the parallel with this shot of Thanos in the farm, which I don't have a picture of, so I'll just show Thanos. But you see this shot and compare it to the comics, where at the end of the Infinity Gauntlet comic, he's in a farm because he lost and he gave up his life of crime, I guess, and all of that. So he's in a farm, and compare that to where he lost in the comics and he won in the movie. The way they went about the ending in this movie with that shot was honestly incredible. And Thanos in general, I said he was probably the best MCU villain ever, and I definitely think that. And I think, in my opinion, he's so much better than his comic book counterpart for many reasons. One, his motivation is so much better. In the comics, his motivation is so boring and cliche and really childish if you think about it. All he wants to do is kill half the universe in order to impress the personification of death, who he is in love with or has a crush on. That's his entire motivation. In the movie, he has this really complex motivation where he had a planet who everyone died because of a lack of resources, and he gave a solution, which was to kill half of all people in order to create balance with the resources and all that. I don't really know how to explain it too well, because it's not. I don't really agree with it, but the motivation is so much better in the movie than it is in the comics, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. Everything about Thanos was amazing in this movie. I think the performance from Josh Brolin, who plays Thanos, was incredible as well. Also, another thing is that Thanos' motivation in this movie really gave a way for the Avengers to not die, or at least the ones that didn't die, because Thanos doesn't really want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to kill people. Like, that's why he really avoided killing at any cost. The only reason he stabbed Iron Man was for Doctor Strange to give up the Time Stone in order to save him. That was the only reason, and every other time he kills someone was to get a stone so that he can complete the Infinity Gauntlet. He really avoided conflict. He didn't really avoid conflict. He avoided killing people at all costs. And that's awesome to me. Its motivation really made it clear that he doesn't want to kill people. He just wants to save the universe, which kind of makes him the hero of his own story, which makes for some of the best villains. I don't think that it always makes for the best villain. I don't think that a villain needs to be the hero in his own story. But in this movie, it really, really works, especially when he is the main character of the movie. This movie did such an amazing job in making him the main character of the movie, with thinking that he's the hero of his own story, but also making him the villain, because we're rooting for the characters we've seen for the last 10 years. So they did such an amazing job of that. Another thing they did an amazing job with Thanos was the Infinity Gauntlet. I expected for him to just be shooting beams of light, green, blue, red, orange, yellow, and is that all of them? I don't really know, but just beams, and I think purple also, of light. And sure, he did shoot a couple beams, like a good amount of beams, but there was so much more to it. He used this Infinity Gauntlet so creatively to bend reality, to change people into cubes or paper, or put the Hulkbuster in just rocks. And sure, a bunch of scenes of him just shoving people aside, shooting beams at people. But I think that in general, he used the Infinity Gauntlet so creatively, and I gotta give major props to the people behind the movie for that, because I really did not expect them to do that. He just used it so creatively, and the best part where he used it creatively was at the end when he got the Mind Stone from Vision. What he did was Scarlet Witch was destroying the Mind Stone, which was this whole big sad sacrifice where Vision died, which I just remember Vision died as well. But I don't know why I didn't talk about that earlier, but that was also a pretty emotional death scene in my opinion. But you see all this thing of Scarlet Witch destroying the Mind Stone. The whole time I'm thinking, this doesn't really mean anything, because Thanos has the Time Stone. He could just reverse time, and then he does just that. So every single time, I think it would be pretty stupid if the movie doesn't do this. They do that, which makes me think that this movie is probably very Hizzy-proof, how it should have ended proof, because every single time I think it should have done something differently, they do just that. And there's no better scenario, there's no better case than when he reversed the sacrifice of Vision and took the Mind Stone. He just ripped the Mind Stone from his head, and he didn't even react to Scarlet Witch destroying the Time Stone, the Mind Stone, because he knew he could just reverse time. And that was just such an awesome scene to me. Really, almost everything about this movie is so awesome, and after I saw it 3 times, I can now say this is my favorite movie of all time. So that is it for my spoiler review of the movie. It wasn't really a spoiler review, like I said. It was just me talking about a bunch of spoilery moments in the movie that I liked. Some of them I didn't really like. In fact, none of them I didn't like. The only thing I didn't really like about this movie was the Hulk's storyline, which I didn't really elaborate on because I think I talked about it enough in my spoiler-free review, and the fact that Captain America's role was very minimal. Everything else about this movie was basically perfect. But let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for daily updates, for better daily updates on my videos, as well as daily polls on the Arrowverse or anything superhero movie/TV show related. Or if you don't have Twitter, definitely get it. But if you don't want Twitter for some reason, definitely click the notification icon next to the subscribe button. And thanks for watching.